First of all, the topic of today, and not only the our guest speaker, but our topic is fulfilling your dream through perseverance and pursuit of creative passion. So I'd like to welcome Isaac Taleno here to the chat, and for him to talk a little bit about himself. One thing before we jump into everything in terms of some housekeeping items, where we'll chat for 30 minutes ish, and then while we're chatting, feel free to drop any questions you have for Isaac into the Q&A box, and then we will take a look at that and jump on in and start answering your questions as well, and just have a nice open discussion and hear all about Isaac's journey to where he stands today as the lead designer at Walt Disney. So super exciting. Hi, Isaac.
Oh, for having me, and hello everyone. Excited to be a part.
Awesome. So I have an icebreaker, as I mentioned in the pre-talk, and maybe it's a little cheesy, but what Disney movie have you seen the most times?
Oh my goodness. Wonderful question. I mean, my favorite Disney movie, which probably equates to bunch of times, is Lion King for sure. Was always my favorite as a kid. Uh,
Yeah.
Such a great movie, and the music and the heart behind it and everything. And I remember pumping in that VHS tape like a million times as a kid. So it's probably my most watched Disney film for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Actually, I didn't even think about that myself. I That was also one of my favorites. I was like, I think it was Little Mermaid, but then my answer was going to be Moana because I think I've watched that the most times most recently. So that's a fair shot though. Lion King is solid.
Yeah, love it.
Oh, nice. But yeah, as I said, it's lovely to have you today, and I just love to jump right into to let everyone know like who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Isaac. Nice to meet everyone. And yeah, so I'm a lead motion designer at the Disney Company currently, and based here in LA, kind of near the Hollywood area. And yeah, it's definitely been an exciting journey of trying things out, trying like testing my creativity across so many different jobs and freelancing and things like that. But I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. I grew up there for most of my life. And yeah, about almost 6 years ago now, I moved to LA and had the great opportunity of getting an internship at Disney about 6 years ago, which was so exciting, lasted about a year or so. Um, and it was funny because it was an exciting year of like seeing all the, walking around the studio and things like that, and seeing some heroes and things like that throughout the year there as an intern, and definitely had the idea of like again, like my whole life was in Arizona pretty much, and it was kind of just pack up and go as a quick turnaround, and finding a little studio apartment and all that fun stuff as you would imagine in LA, and thinking like, oh, this is gonna be it, I'm just gonna go there and it's gonna be perfect. And of course it wasn't perfect per se. uh, the year came and the year went, and definitely had in my mind that I was just gonna like get hired on full time and just stay at Disney. And then of course it was like, oh, unfortunately, circumstances, whatever, things like that. That's the internship. Good luck. And so now I'm in LA. What do I do? Where do I go? Do I go back home? Like what is my life now? So it's definitely a exciting and just such a learning experience to discover who I am, what kind of career I want to form, and just really understanding my creative pursuit, and just jumping to freelance, going to working for different creative agencies with like movie marketing, which is really exciting. Once I ended up there and kind of staying in those circles a bit, and then eventually about almost a year and a half ago or so, found my way back to Disney and did the whole apply and interview and all that great stuff, and finally made it back. But it was definitely wasn't the cleanest kind of path that I first intended.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually I mean it's amazing to hear for sure. And yeah, that was also part of your bio of just like recognizing the journey is never the same from person to person, and just like learning that value of consistent creativity, which is just something that I realize I forgot to introduce myself to everybody. um, but I'll quickly just do that and get to my point. But for those, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Kalina. I am the head of the digital design and VR AR programs here at the Vancouver's Film School. So more to the point, when I say the students that I see day to day, this is something that a lot of them seem to struggle with, is that they find that they're maybe they're potentially on the wrong path, or they want to do the exact steps they've seen someone else do in order to get to, whatever that end goal is, which is lead motion designer or creative director or anything like that. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And even just I think one of the really funny and just really uplifting things I realized from moving to LA and just being in the thick of it, and seeing uh different motion designers, artists, VFX, like just people in the industry, actors, and just
Yeah.
all of it. Um, I think from afar and like growing up in Arizona, and it's just like, wow, like Hollywood, like everyone has it together, like they know what they're doing. And then you come here, and it's funny to realize like everyone like is just figuring it out, just like you. Just everyone is almost kind of in the same boat, and we're all just really passionate about our creativity, what we want to communicate, our stories. Everyone's just in it together, and it's really funny to realize like you meet some of your heroes, or you like see someone like, oh my gosh, you're that person that did this, and they're also like, yeah, I don't know, half just half the day like what I'm supposed to be doing, and you keep pushing and keep creating. And it's just really funny to realize meeting some of those people, and it's like, oh wow,
Mm.
like not all perfect. It's all just a passion for your craft.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One question that I was actually thinking as you were talking about, like, completing the internship with Disney, and you're like, oh yeah, maybe they'll hire me on full time, and it didn't happen. So like, how did you feel like leaving, and like what was kind of your next step? Like how are you kind of processing that? Like, was that something where you're like just hitting the ground running, or you were like, oh gosh, what am I gonna do?
Great. No, it's very real and like very human. Like towards the end of it, I remember because it's like there were some plans in place for like maybe staying. So it was definitely like, oh my gosh, it's gonna happen. And I'm like, I'm all set. And then just situations shifted, and they weren't able to fulfill that. So it was definitely a bit of a shock. It was kind of
Yeah.
like you get the news, and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm sitting here in I rented a room from some just really kind older gentleman, and I was just like in the middle of this tiny, tiny rented space. And it was just me just sitting there. I'm like, okay, so what's next? What do I do? And it's definitely, I think it's very normal and very human, of course, to kind of sit there for a minute and understand that what you had hoped for didn't come to fruition. But I think after I kind of settled and like kind of regained my breath there
Mm,
after the initial shock, I think realizing just who are the people around you and who are the people that you either look up to or can create alongside with. I think luckily I had a great community of friends and community of creatives that I found in LA that I could kind of just bounce off ideas with, just connect with, just even outside of like actually making, like just being people and
yeah.
just going out together and all that. And I think it was really beneficial for me to have that sense of community where I was. And so in that moment, it was just like sticking with them and sticking with my passions and figuring out what to do next. And then eventually it's like, all right, I'm gonna start freelancing a bit, applying to jobs and all that. And I think
Mhm.
again, with the people that were around me, I was able to realize the capacity and the creative potential I had and what I
Mhm.
had to offer. And it kind of motivated me to just keep creating. I would create like passion projects, like not necessarily like paid work or anything like that. I would just create little 1 minute animated motion design little things that seemed exciting, just looking at the work and the kind of studios I wanted to be at and just
Right.
replicate that work and replicate passion projects and just
Mhm.
putting things out there, posting it to Instagram, Vimeo, whatever, things like that,
Yeah.
and just making stuff. And I think from that, I was able to build a little bit more of a stronger like portfolio and being just honest with studios and like that. Like this wasn't paid work. I'm not like working
Yeah.
it. Like this is what I create. This is my art. You know, what can we do with this? And then luckily I was able to land a little agency creative marketing job and then went from there.
Nice, nice. That's amazing. Yeah, no, it's a truly interesting space to live in when you're kind of going through a transition, and how that can fuel your artistic and creative streak and what you end up doing with that, and that it's not just that, it's also, as you mentioned, the community and everything around that as well.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'd love to actually just hear also how you like transition to all of this, like the beginning of the beginning. Like I think if from what I recall seeing on your LinkedIn, like you were a graphic designer like at the beginning. I don't know if that was like the very beginning or just what LinkedIn shows. But yeah, I think everyone would love to kind of hear how you kind of went through that, and like did you always want to be a motion designer? Did you always want to work for Disney, or was like that path a little different for you?
Yeah, I think early on, I have a funny story that I always talk about. It's like definitely just movies in general. Like as a kid, I loved and of course Disney movies or things like that. Just any
Mhm.
sort of creative expression. I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then slowly realizing like, wait, people like that's their day to day. That's their job. That you like you can just do that. That's your life. Which is crazy. And I eventually the peak era of like DVDs, like
Yeah.
uh popping in like I remember I think it was like the Monsters Inc. DVD or Finding Nemo or something, and just realizing like, whoa, when I click through like little animations happen, like click on the main menu or the chapter markers and these fun little experiences happen or bonus features. And I was so enthralled by that. Um that in my mind, I was like, I want to be a DVD menu maker when I grow up. That's the job. That's the gig. This is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I can sympathize with that because I also understood like a good DVD menu, which not everyone maybe understands at this point, but I don't care. It's awesome. I get it.
Even going back to, I think it was like Lion King 1.5 or something, had like a little video game where you like tap through and it felt like a ride or something. Um, just a lot of core memories of that. But then realizing all the pieces that go into that, and then
Mhm.
realizing like, oh, this is just design at its core. This is problem solving at its core, things like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I started as a just loving design in general, doing graphic design. I worked for back in Arizona, like some like nonprofit uh, jobs and things like that, and creating brochures and things and signage, things like that, design for like a random billboards or whatever. Like
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
like very hometown graphic design sort of stuff, which was incredible, and learned so much. And that really just like boosted me off into like the creative world,
Mm.
and learned from some incredible people. Like I have a friend that really taught me a lot in design and all that, and worked with him for a while. So a lot of it was just like graphic design, and then realizing like, oh, I can make some of these designs move. That's interesting. And learning again, got like like I think it was like iDVD and like iMovie,
Mm,
that stuff, and like playing with the little like animation features on there.
yeah.
Found the world of motion design and realized like, oh, there is so much more in this. And it's almost like this combination of art and like kind of technology and a lot of problem solving and trying
Mhm.
to bridge those two worlds together. And I just fell in love with it. So yeah, learned After Effects and Cinema 4D and things like that from there. And it just really took off and started doing just motion projects. And
Nice. What kind of tools do you actually use now with it? I actually don't know if I can ask you this, but like I'll ask regardless and you let me know. But like are you using that like After Effects Cinema 4D in your day-to-day, or is there like more proprietary software that you tend to use? Like what does that look like?
yeah, no, definitely, at least for me and the team that I work with, it's yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of Adobe Suite stuff. It's After Effects, it's Cinema 4D, using like Redshift to render any 3D
Mm,
stuff. Um, and even so my current role right now, even to give a little background of that, it's I work for a part of Disney that is essentially a tech company within Disney. And then I'm part of like the creative team within that, because of course you still need to have that spark of magic and creativity, no matter what's happening at Disney.
yeah.
So it's this really cool space of a lot of app design work, like UI, UX sort of interactions, and really trying to dig deep into how motion fits into that and how
Mm,
delightful experiences within a bunch of apps that of course like Disney owns. So like I work a lot with like the ESPN side of things as well,
mm,
with like the fantasy app and the ESPN app, and as well as starting to work within like Disney Plus, Hulu, like things like that. And Marvel, there's so many apps, a lot of random apps and technology
yeah.
that Disney kind of touches. And then I just help support that and bring kind of my lens of motion design. And then it's been a fun kind of relearning of how do I apply motion design, because the previous agencies I worked for was for theatrical marketing, so like
Mm,
movies, things like that was all like
yeah.
really deep motion design. Just make it flashy, make it cool, put cool
Right.
effects on it, and then bringing that learning and almost simplifying it and bring it to its core of motion and
Mm-hmm.
animation for technology and apps. It's been really
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like finding that balance as like going into like UX UI is also such like a like focusing in on a user, like as you're saying from the theatrical side of things, it's very as you said, flashy, and it's all about kind of like hitting the audience immediately, being like, you want this thing or go see this thing. Versus with the app, it that's still there, but it must be a little different when you're having to, as you're saying, like you're having to kind of go down to the core of motion and to find that balance, it sounds like.
yeah, for sure. It's very like, and we still, depending on the project, like we get to have fun and do little like promo videos, and that's where we get to, do a little more of that theatrical kind of animation and things like that to promote
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah, when we're in that like UI UX world, and now working with Figma a lot, which is also a new piece of software because that's
Right.
a big piece in the tech world, and like product design and things like that. It was definitely, yeah, a bit of relearning of how do you like bring that essence of motion, but in a more very direct and simple way, and have little moments of delight and bring in some fun things into it.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, that's so interesting. And yeah, no, it's just really interesting to hear. Also with the working with UX UI, like did you find that like were you kind of learning that as you were going along, or did you do some like kind of um like workshops and like learning on your own to kind of like find see what like you wanted that to look like?
Yeah, totally. I think the beauty of like just motion design in general is that it's funny. It's hard to define when people ask like,
Hmm.
what do you do? And it's like, "Oh, I do motion graphics," but that could mean a million things, It's like,
100%.
yeah, and it's more so it's turning into like we're creative problem solvers and like solving problems through just movement, you know? And so bringing that to this newer role has been yeah, so interesting. I had to Google and YouTube a bunch of like what is UX design exactly, and how do you integrate some of these motion elements, and learning about
Mhm.
things like there's this kind of way to export animation instead of like your MP4 MOV files. It's like they're called Lottie files, and it's like
Mhm.
code based in a sense.
Mhm.
So learning a lot of that to bring some of that flashy, fun animation into apps. So I had to like look into all that and research all that of how to implement After Effects stuff and animation into those things, and realizing it's it's a fun little system because you can't use any plugins. You strip
Yeah.
it to position keyframes and rotation and scale, and you can't just because it literally like the code can't process any sort of plugins or effects or anything. Uh,
Yeah.
it really brings it back to like, can you animate, and bring that sense of like human motion into
Mm.
icons or fun illustrative experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a lot of learning, a lot of Googling, YouTubing, just yeah.
Constant on the job learning.
Yeah, learning, which is like what I love. It's like part of the job. It's like you're
Yeah.
and just like always learning.
Is that like if you would have to like walk through like kind of like a day to day kind of like a day in the life kind of thing, like what is that like making up a good portion of your day, do you find? Does it tend to ebb and flow as like new projects come in? Like what does that look like for you typically?
Yeah, I feel like every day can be so different. Again, it's a lot of like just finding solutions to any creative problems that come up in different products or different experiences. Um, like it has ranged from like when I started, it just so happened to be like Disney's 100th anniversary is coming up
Mm.
year, and um, we were preparing. It was like, how do we create a fun experience on like Disney 100, just like first website or whatever, and there wasn't a ton of um, I guess like prep work or a lot of pre like realized visuals or things like that. And so it was like a problem to solve. And they were like, we need something exciting, something that brings wonder and excitement to this page. And they're like, make something, And it was a fun journey of like, well, so what do I make? And they're like, have at it, whatever you can up. And so days like that are really exciting, where it's purely like you come in and it's like it can be a bit of sketching of just dreaming up things on like a little notebook, or looking up inspiration just throughout the internet or whatever, and pulling mood boards, things like that, and trying to pitch several ideas and just kind of like R&D things, and ended up making this fun little like portal experience of like what's to come soon. And it was like this fun little front page with this like glowy shiny thing, but inside it you could see like imagery of different Disney movies and things like that. So it was really fun and exciting to be a part of that. And so a day like that is super exciting, where it's like a lot of creative juices and collaborating with my team. It's a team of just incredible motion designers, and like everyone brings different ideas and different thoughts and perspectives to how we can bring some fun and delight to different products. And then other days it's a lot of just uh, finding different ways to bring motion into the subtlest form. Like that's the more like
Right.
exciting things. And then there's like the day-to-day of like, we really need this button to like really communicate what we needed to do, and it's like, all right, here we go. And it's funny because the beauty of Disney, I feel like, and a lot of just passionate people, is finding like the tiniest details and making sure that's up to par to
Mm.
want people to feel and what we want people to experience. So even as small as a button can bring a lot of creative just iteration and trying different ways to like animate it and make it fun and engaging and communicate, what the user needs to know about it. So the day to day, it definitely varies right now.
Yeah.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. And is that like when it comes to kind of like a bit of the topic, like around like creative passion, like is that something that do you feel that you have that all the time, like every day, or does that ebb and flow? Like I would say for me, it definitely can ebb and flow because that's just creatively how it works. For me, it's
So
different for everybody.
yeah, no, that's so valid and so real. I think there's days, like I said, where you find out about like, yeah, this exciting project and you start, the creativity like just flies around. And then there's some days you come in and it's like, I don't know if I want to be here today, like it's just
Yeah.
like I have a 1 year old now, a little girl. And
Oh.
that's a blast, but also can be just like energy, just all the time. And then like, all right, time to go to work. And it's like, woo boy. Time to be creative. And it's like sometimes you're on empty. Um,
Right.
but I think that's so like human and okay. And it almost sometimes I find it empowering when I'm on that empty level. It's like that's when I go out and try something totally different. Like just like don't even like log out of like things, close After Effects, and like see some sunshine for a bit, and
Yeah. Yeah.
nice walk and all that stuff. And it's really amazing what like things start pouring into you, and even going back to just relationships and with people. And I think a lot of my career journey has been fueled by the people around me and just being inspired by people around me that love what they do. And I love music a lot too. So uh,
Yeah.
some friends that are musicians. So even just like doing a totally different creative pursuit for a bit and play some music and things like that uh,
Mhm.
can be so empowering to just connect with others and just close this laptop down and do something else for a bit. Because yeah, every day is different and life hits sometimes, and it's not always perfect paintbrushing creativity. Like sometimes it's a dry dry brush, and you gotta fill it up in other ways.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's actually cutting into like two like I have two questions basically that they're kind of similar in ways, but and one of them's actually from the Q&A was just and how you deal with art block. And then another one was I wanted to talk to you about like, you mentioned influences and stuff like that, but maybe like kind of just following that trend of like your creative passion and sometimes being on empty and like, and then going off of one of the attendees' questions, like, how do you typically deal with art block? You've kind of already touched on some of the things, just like getting out of your space, walking away from the computer, but or do you have a different tactic when it comes specifically to kind of that creative block?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, definitely stepping away is huge. And yeah, again, I mean, I kind of almost a broken record, but yeah, again, it's like the people around me definitely really like fills me up.
Hmm.
Um, when I'm like out of ideas, it's like, yeah, like how should I attack this? How do I make this cooler? And just talking to other people and being connected through other spaces really helps me discover new things and discover new ways to approach um, different creative solutions. And yeah, I think it just comes from a lot of that. And I think just even just taking care of yourself sometimes. I think there's sometimes seasons where I'm like, I haven't taken a brisk walk in a while or eat some things like that. And just I think it's easy to get, in the thick of it of just plugging in computer, wake up, especially after, our season of COVID and all of that. Just
100%.
at a lot of closed spaces. And then it's almost been like a relearning of like what's around us and what else can inspire
Mm.
you. Um, or, sitting out by a tree and sometimes I'll like, I love art, design, things like that, but I cannot draw. Like I am so bad at physical pencil drawing. But because of that, like I like to do it because I'm like, it's something so different, something that my hands like cannot usually do on the day to day.
Yeah.
Expressing that for a bit is fun. And again, music, I love playing piano and things like that. And just doing different expressions of art, tends to spark different ideas. And
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's totally valid. Like stepping back and even just doing something completely different and something you're super uncomfortable with sometimes is like the weird avenue around that block, right?
totally,
So
yeah, trying something uniquely different, and or even like going to a dance class or something like so out there, something that's not you can just like inspire something so new and exciting. And yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And then like even just talking about like how you're getting inspired, you talked about music and stuff like that. Like, is there like a like is music what you're typically drawn to when it comes from an inspired, like if you want to be inspired, like even just stepping away from the idea of like the having to deal with creative block or anything like that, but what are those kind of things that you're usually kind of immediately drawn to in that way?
Yeah, I think definitely music is a big one for me. Definitely since elementary school, I was like in orchestra and like played the
Right.
and things like that. And then eventually transitioned to like piano and love to play piano a lot. So that is always really inspiring. And I love like synthesizer stuff and like electronic music. So playing with that, and I have a friend that's really into that world, and I'll ask him about like new tools or little gadgets that he has, and it's so fun to hear all that.
Right.
Um, yeah, a lot of that, and a lot of just I think the fun and kind of just really grateful to live in a place like LA and like in Hollywood and things like that. And even so, I did a summer intensive years ago in Vancouver. Um,
Right.
so places like Vancouver, LA, just larger cities, at least for me in general, it's like just exploded with creativity. And like you walk down a block and there's like fun, just mural art or things like that, and just different expressions of just personality just on display everywhere, so even just walking around your town and city is so beautiful to look at. And even just I love good food, and so finding a new ramen place or something delicious or different. There's this one place in downtown LA that's delicious, and trying some different food, it's cool what creativity looks like for every
Mhm.
individual. It's so different, for like fashion and like and there's a lot of actors around here, of course, or things like that. And it's just like everyone's expression is so different.
Mhm.
So even just getting outside and connecting with people who do totally different things, and asking them like, why do you do it? Like, what's your why is huge, like asking people like, why do you like, why do you feel so fulfilled doing this? And it's really
Mhm.
incredible to hear those answers and things like that.
Mhm. Absolutely, that's so true. um yeah. Can I ask you that question? What is your why? Because that's also like it's just kind of following this theme, right? And maybe you've already kind of answered it in this in the different train of thoughts we've been going through. But like, is that something that you have a concrete idea of? Has it changed maybe as you've gone through the earlier part of your career till now?
Yeah, no, that's great, because I think it has changed like time to time. I always have to like, even right now, you asking me, I'm like, what is my why? I don't know.
Not to put you on the spot, sorry.
But like always shifting and forming, at least for me. Um, I think right now my why is definitely just um finding ways to bring some delight into someone's everyday.
Mhm.
Any type of um expression of art being, you know, if it's an app, something fun little button there makes someone like, oh, that's fun. And it kind of brings a little pep in their step. Or if it's a
Mhm.
like exciting experience, I'll make sure that that's something refreshing or something different. And always thinking about like, who's the person on the other end that's receiving that, and making sure it's exciting and it feels like there was heart put into it and things like that. And I think people can notice that on the other side. Um, and even to be more literal, even so there's like that's the more artistic answer, I guess. But then even just the why of like, again, now having a daughter and building family and things like that, my why is now like creating art to be fulfilled and to then be able to like support my family and things like that is something really
Mhm.
special as well. And coming home and seeing her, just get all excited or run up and all that, it's like, wow, this is amazing. So
Yeah.
it's like your why always shifts. And then like earlier, I think my why was like, um, I don't know, I think just finding purpose and feeling fulfilled in my creativity. I think there was something beautiful about just like putting something out there. And I would post things on Instagram and not be completely done or take like forever to like create it and make multiple iterations and drafts
Mm,
of it, but just like put it out was definitely really fulfilling, and just trying new things constantly
mm.
definitely kept me going. But yeah, it's fun to kind of discover what your why is, and that helps me push forward. And again, back when Disney first didn't work out, it was like another season of like, what's my why? What am I like
Right.
even like this? Do I move back to Arizona? Like things like that. But
Mm.
my why is just loving what I do. And so it was just, all right, next foot forward and keep creating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's so true. I absolutely resonate with that. And yeah, finding that why when you're in a transition is can sometimes be such a like we were mentioning earlier, such a weird time to kind of be like, was my why wrong? Like, can it
Exactly.
be wrong?
Like I thought this was what I was supposed to do. And then
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely exciting, scary, but I think it's, kind of cliche to say, but it's there's just power in failing well. There's
mm,
beauty in the failure, and then kind of turning that around and making something beautiful out of it.
yeah, absolutely. We did have one question from one of the audience that actually it's a very interesting one. Is like, at what age did you feel like you really found your place?
Ooh,
And it's a good one.
yeah.
It could be a tough one.
I'm trying to think. Let's see. I guess, yeah, younger again, like just watching movies. I just love movies in general. Like I love watching Star Wars movies, Jurassic Park, things like that. And I was like, wow, that's something so incredible to watch, and then understanding there's people behind that.
Mm,
I think, during that internship, actually, what was a really cool realization of, again, after that whole process of understanding, oh, this is what I want to do, so I'm just going to
mm,
keep going, um, which was like late 20s,
yeah,
and actually, realizing, because I think, again, with like different paths, it's like you see you're 18, you're like graduate high school, 4 years of college, and then like you're done and you got your career. But it took me a little while. you know
yeah,
I'm 31 now, and back at this role at Disney about a year, so I got it at 30. And
yeah, yeah,
for everyone, and seeing others find their version of success while I'm
mm,
grinding through it.
yeah,
I think age is definitely just is different for everyone when you like find your place and find your what you're supposed to do. And it's great if it happens early on, but it's also just as great if it happens later. uh,
yeah,
and it's everyone's different, and I think it's great to kind of like take a deep breath, push back, and realize like we have a lot of time in the grand scheme of things, and just like breathe in, breathe out, and just like learn to love what you do, no matter the circumstance. And it could take time, or it could be a quick, exciting moment. So, but yeah, I think
yeah,
it was like mid-20s if we're being literal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Like I just remembered when I was like in high school was such a, of course, a major transitional time, but that was a wild ride just to see some people who knew exactly what they wanted, and that's exactly what they did. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I was always so jealous because I was like, I don't know, I have so many I don't know where I want to go. Like, and yeah, just like finding that rhythm, and sometimes it just takes longer for some people, and or it ebbs and flows and it changes. So you have to find it again.
Totally.
Yeah. We've got some other really great questions. So there's this one. It's a bit long, so I'll just see if I can kind of pull out. Um, First of all, this person is really vibing with everything that you're saying. It's just so amazing to hear, they said. And they're moving to Vancouver in a couple of months. And after studying animation, they had to move back to working in graphic design. And now that they're moving and looking to going back into motion graphics, it's kind of making them nervous, or really nervous, that is. And they're wondering if you have any advice of a way to start with these small personal projects you mentioned earlier for their portfolios, and where to get client-like briefs, as they put it, to get started, etc.
I love that. No, I think that's an exciting journey for you. It's definitely, again, kind of similar to mine of like it's like this like roller coaster of a career, and sometimes like it goes up and then sometimes you're like, ooh, like what's next? And then it climbs up again, and then that little curve of like coming back up and pushing yourself to something new or going back to it can be exciting, and it can also be scary. So I think it's yeah, for me in the more kind of like concrete sense, again, it was a lot of just I didn't have like literal like client work yet or anything.
Yeah.
And it was just learning what I love about motion design, learning about what are the specific studios that I found really engaging, that like really match my artistic style and match like what I want to create in the future. I think
Mm,
something like really powerful, I think I've learned in my career of just like seeing something and realizing I can't necessarily do that yet, and
mm.
in that, but I know I can like reach towards it, you know? And so it was a lot of just a lot of that reaching, and just I'm gonna open up After Effects, and you know, one of my favorite studios is, which I'm sure a lot of motion designers have seen, is Buck. Buck is incredible. They do some
Absolutely.
and I mean, to be honest, even today I'm like, I don't know how they do that. Like there's a certain level of motion design that I definitely like haven't reached, or I don't know if I will, but I will always and consistently just create just to create, you know. I went to a years ago, like an Adobe Max uh conference thing. And I forgot the name. What's his name? Timothy Goodman, I think is his name. He's like
Okay.
he does a lot of the art direction for those cool sketchy Sharpie. I think he did
Mm,
a and like that cool like Sharpie art design look. And
yeah.
sitting in his talk, it was really inspiring because a lot of the other talks had a lot of like very big, like imaginative, like things, and his was very simple. I feel like it was like 30 minutes of him just like he just like connected his laptop and was just showing his work, just like clicking through, and he was just like, just keep
Mm,
creating, and like he's like, yeah, I sat down and I just like made this, you know, and it was so
yeah.
cool and simple at the same time of like he didn't have this like big like epiphany of how he got to where he is in his career, but it's like again that sense of like reaching out, he would just like create and just like he'd be in his notebook and make really cool expressions. So again, with like motion design, I think it's just studying some really cool studios and just
Mm,
create those passion projects, um and to be a little more like literal in how you like present that. I think what I've seen from what studios like to hear from in your portfolios is your process, like sharing
mm,
your ideas about it, sharing your sketches, like putting that on your website portfolio, like sharing your process is huge, because again, like motion design will like always be changing.
mm.
I think it's more about how you problem solve. So sharing on your portfolio. How did I solve this problem? How did I look at this piece of inspiration or mood board, and how did I like end up to where I was? And sharing that, I think, has been really powerful for other studios to look at, and I think it's more exciting to then end up in an interview. Um,
Yeah. Absolutely. The process thing, I cannot express that enough. I talk to my students about that all the time. I'm like, see these sketches that you're just like doodling? And I'm just like, you need to capture that, take a picture, scan it, do something, but don't just toss it away or don't just skip the step. I can't express this enough.
the most
Uh,
beautiful first step, it's
yeah, it could look bad. It could look super bad. It could be like the
like.
silliest little sketch and the smallest little thing.
And so I posted some of that on my own site and things like that. And it's like these crazy little pencil sketches that, like, who knows if you can make out what that was.
Yeah.
It's just showing that like creative process. And I think that's really valuable when searching for a job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with that. We do have a couple questions coming in regarding how did you get to work at Disney? Some more relating to like when you were getting your internship, and was it easy? Was it not? Was your resume and stuff like that still very important? That kind of thing. It's in the vein of like kind of coming off that one question.
Yeah, no, it's definitely I'll be honest, I feel like it felt like luck for a little bit, especially for that first internship. But I think again, it's a little bit of that of sharing your process and being really detailed in, I think, in interviews, in the way you submit your resumes, things like that. I think understanding your passion and understanding why you do what you, again coming back to that why, and
Right.
why you love this, why you want this, can really come through when you submit, you know, resumes and things like that. And I think
Mhm.
pretty much all jobs, and again, getting really concrete and literal here, have a little option for a cover letter. And I feel like some people skip over that or try to like
Yeah.
simplify it. It's like, I, do design things and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like very just cut and dry.
Yeah.
I, again, coming from just unconventional ways of trying to get a job, things like that. I took that moment to be really expressive and really just poured my heart out on a cover letter and just saying, this is who I am. This is why I do what I do. Here's how I envision how I can make like how to elevate your company, how to elevate your studio through
Mm.
my art, XYZ, whatever. But just like don't skip over that. I think a cover letter is really important. Um, and I think realizing a lot of companies, or at least bigger companies like Disney, there's a lot of layers to it and
Mm.
long process. I think from hitting submit to finally getting a job to like 4 or 5 months or something. It was
That it's surprising when I hear it, but I know that it's like ultimately when I sit there, I'm like, that's not surprising at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lengthy process, and it's a lot of waiting and a lot
Yeah.
of like holding your breath. But because of that, I think there's layers to it, and so a lot of bigger companies have um, like the recruiters that
Mm.
read your cover letters, who aren't necessarily from the creative field. They aren't necessarily from no
Mhm.
motion design. Like once you get further down the road of the process, then the creative director is actually looking at it, and they can just look at your work and they know you and they know what they want. But
Yeah.
for that, that's where that cover letter comes in so handy, because you're speaking to that recruiter, you're speaking to someone
Yep.
in HR who just wants to hear why you're right for the job or the role, and just
Mhm.
wants to hear your heart behind it. And I think there's a lot of power that can come from that, and really getting through that first hump.
Absolutely. I mean, it ultimately comes down to telling your story, right? Which is like really the core of motion design, is that telling a story and communicating that in a way that evokes that emotion, right? So like
Absolutely.
maybe with a recruiter, you're not necessarily wanting to evoke emotion other than like this is cool. But it's in that vein for sure. It's using your skills, your skill set for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really amazing. Also just looking at the time, I'll just take a quick scan of some of the other questions we had. Some really great stuff there. They're really, I'm not sure if you can see the chat from your end, but really loving it. And they're saying thank you for those whose questions you're answering. Um, yeah, there's actually one here that I think is a really great one. Is that they're wondering about using motion design in the games area as, or is it just for movies and animation? And I love this question because I have my own opinion on this, but I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, I think the gaming industry is huge. I haven't been too deep into it, but I've seen roles come up
Mhm.
in like some pretty big gaming companies that need motion design. And again, I feel like gaming is kind of like a UI UX sort of, it's, digital stuff. And so yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities. I think we're even right now with my current role, it's some of the apps we support is gaming in a sense, like the
Mhm.
fantasy app. The last year, if anyone, it's funny because I'm not like a huge like sports fan and know a lot
Right.
of sports. So that's also been an area of learning. But I had a great opportunity to build this like gaming experience within the fantasy app. So when you finish your season, you get this like Spotify rap sort of experience
Ah.
through it, and like all these fun animations come in. So it was really exciting way to plug in motion design into there. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities I think in gaming beyond just like marketing, flashy video sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, how do you feel about like in other industries? Like, can you use this in other industries outside of, like, well, film and entertainment and
Motion,
animation, sorry, motion design.
yeah. Um, I feel like I've seen just more and more like motion design within just so many different express, even like on, so I used to do actually a lot of like concert visual stuff. So
Mhm.
uh there's a lot of motion design that goes around there, like while someone's performing and all that, having some cool visuals behind them and cool little things, time to music and things like that. Um, and even just learning motion design in general, I feel like sets you up for some really cool different types of creative things, just understanding how things move. Or again, it's like it keeps changing, so it really is just problem solving. So it's just being a good problem solver at the end of the day, like no matter what it is, no matter the industry, it's you're just solving a problem and finding a creative way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can be applied to almost any industry.
Like yeah, like
Yeah.
no matter what
Yeah.
story,
You-
like whatever.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, just tapering down with the time. I think one last question. Um, I think this one is more along the lines of just like kind of if there's like one final thought or one final maybe lesson you want to leave the audience with today.
Yeah. Again, I think just really being passionate about what you do, and it's not going to be easy. Like that's just the reality of it. It's going to have an ebb and flow to it, like everything we just talked about. It's sometimes you won't feel creative, sometimes you won't hear back from jobs you submit, like it'll just be radio silence.
Mhm.
And I think that's a very real part of it, but just sticking true to you do what you do well and you're passionate about it. And I think people will start seeing that as you progress in your creative journey, as you progress in learning new things, just constantly learning. um, and again, one last time, just have great people around you. I think the team I'm on, I have a blast at work every day. Like it's such a good crew, and no matter what project we're on, we love doing it because we're doing it together. And so I
Mhm.
think it's just finding those creative people around you when you're at school in Vancouver. It's such an incredible place at VFS. Find some other, students around you that you want to hang out with afterwards, and just create something together in different fields and things like that. Again, it's just like it's so easy to get siloed and get stuck to your work. Step back, hang with people, I think is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. That's amazing. And 100% I can agree. And yeah, thank you again, Isaac, for joining us today. I can't express that enough. I think our audience is feeling the same. And yeah, audience, thank you also for attending today. You guys were really great. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. I did my best. There was quite a few. But yeah, thank you again, Isaac, and everyone have a great evening.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. And I mean, feel free to like LinkedIn, whatever, Google Isaac Taleno, and happy to just support you guys. I'm really excited for what you guys do at VFS. And yeah.
Yeah, thanks again. All right. See you all. Goodbye, everyone.